to this computer. All right, we are recording. Let's hope we can find it. That's the challenge. Good morning, Mr. Dexter. Gotta love RPR. I love to see all these bright, funny, shiny faces for RPR. All right.
Can you send the last one, the last record?
You know what? That's a great question, Luz. The problem I had is that when it crashed, I cannot find the recording anywhere.
Oh, no.
Not to say it's not there somewhere, but I have no idea what strange, this, crazy code they gave the name of it. So it may still be somewhere hidden in my computer. I just have no idea where. But if I can't find it, I'll just have another class. So I guess I'm like this. Yeah, it's because I was recording it to my computer, not to the cloud, because the cloud is full and then it just keeps deleting it. But because it crashed the computer, and guys, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to tell you a secret. It was my fault. I didn't have the computer plugged in. I was so excited about contracts, I didn't notice that my battery went to nothing. So that's on me. I'm going to own that one. Okay. So yeah, we can all do crazy things. The thing is, we just got to laugh about it, right? Okay. A couple of things I want to share for those of you that are new to RPR is right here. First of all, they have this really cool learning tab. If you have not been there, they have, little tiny videos. And when I say tiny, a minute, minute and a half, so little tiny snippets of information about a ton of topics. So that's a great place to check it out. They also have cool blogs on there. So if you want to see what appraisers are saying, because appraisers use the system too. The system is not just for agents, believe it or not.
Here's what to expect.
Hello. Let's see. All right, so appraisers use this as well. So that's a good thing to know too. But that is the learning tab. Reports tab, it does save your reports. If you notice here on the left-hand side, your recent reports are saved, your recent searches. So that's a cool thing. You can always go back and rerun a report and even modify it simply. The other thing I wanted to share with you is if you want to do commercial, they have a commercial tab up here, and you click on that and it switches you over to RPR commercial. This is a fabulous tool. We're not going to go into it today. This would be a whole separate training. But if you're ever looking at commercial, or even just looking at somebody who wants to maybe build a home in an area perhaps where they might want to have a business as well, you can look at traffic reports. You can look at all sorts of demographics and in-depth information about who lives there, who might be spending time there, that kind of thing. It's fabulous. So maybe we'll have another class on commercial, but we're going to switch back to the residential tab. I just wanted you guys to know that it is there, and it is a fabulous tool. Okay, one thing for the new users, and everybody else is going to laugh because if you've been in RPR for any length of time, we've all done it at least once. When you want to search for a property, let's say you're doing a CMA, a property that's not on the market, you're getting ready to go do a listing. Can somebody give me a good property that we could use today as a subject property? Or not? Come on, somebody, give me a property. Karen Ellis.
Yeah, we can do mine. I guess it's let me just see the address.
Quiet over there. I'm like, Give me
I just unmuted myself. It's 10025 Halacia. Well, actually, let's do 98.
What, 98?
Sorry. Yeah, 9849 Lob Lolly Woods Drive.
Lob,
L-O-B.
Oh.
L-O-L-L-Y.
Notice it pops up here, guys. This is a really great thing. All right, thank you, Kara. We're going to use this. Now, Is this property for sale already or no?
No.
Okay, so this is what I want to show you. Let's say you've been looking for properties for sale and you pull this up and you can change the tab to all properties and you go to search for it. And well, I'm surprised it came up, to be honest. It's off market. Usually it won't come up. It's because you have to make sure that you're not looking at properties that are for sale. You're only looking at all properties. If you are trying to do a CMA property that's not on the market, let's mute somebody.
Who knows?
Hi, Marima. Hi, Mark. Hi, Bernadette. All right. I don't know. Somebody's phone is a little loud, so if you would do me a favor and just mute it, that would be fabulous.
Just Martha.
Martha, mute her. There we go. All right. So Hi, Bruno. I see you're here too. All right. So that's just a little quick little tip. Make sure that you're in all properties when you're searching. Morning. You can also jump to neighborhoods. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, RPR is nationwide. RPR is paid for by the National Association of Realtors. You are dealing with somebody who's relocating. You just got a referral from someone who's a Pacific Sotheby's. Wouldn't that be great? It's California, and we're getting more from them. So you get one from California. You find out where they're living currently. You can actually do a report on their current property in California. You can do a property report for the neighborhood. I love the neighborhood report because if we're trying to find people, a neighborhood here, we want to narrow down the amount of time we have to spend searching for the property in person, right? So it's all about the work you do ahead. So my point is you find out the top 5 must-haves, the top 5 cannot-haves, right? And then what are the things you loved about your neighborhood? What do you wish was different? Then when you pull their neighborhood up, you can now take this detailed information and compare it to neighborhoods here. And you can send them these reports and say, I'm really excited. You shared with me these are the things important to you about this neighborhood. And as you can see from this report, this is a similar neighborhood to yours. So this is a great report. Do not miss the neighborhood report. I love it for that. Schools are fabulous as well, but today we're going to talk about CMAs. I just wanted to hit a little bit of that just so you have an overview. If anybody has any questions, you know me, pipe on in. You're welcome to cut me off. Okay, but somebody have one? No. Okay. For the purpose of today's training, we're going to go ahead and use Carrie's property right here, and it should pop up. So if it doesn't, make sure you're spelling it correctly or you're putting the right city, state, or zip, because if it doesn't populate, they may not find it. So you have to make sure it pops. The other thing is, guys, you can do an advanced search right from this page. This would be, let's say you wanted to do a targeted prospecting of distressed properties because maybe you want to work with a builder and you want to offer some terrific places that he could maybe take a home that's already in construction, that's already been built, that's older, and knock it down and build a new home. So I can look for properties that are distressed only. I can see that they're not for sale, not pending, not for lease. I could just select all of those things. And now I could use this for a hyper-targeted search. So it's a great thing. I really love the distressed one on that. But anyway, that's what the advanced search is for. We're going to go ahead and just search for this property. And we're going to talk a little bit about this RVM. So RVM is their automated valuation system, right? And the confidence level, and let's take a peek at that, as you'll see, it'll tell you why they think this number is accurate. I really like to look into, not this thing, what is this? Some new video they have here. I want to see what they're using. Why am I not able to click? Really weird. Usually you can click right here and it'll give you all the properties they're using in their RVM. View details, sorry, there it is. So this is where they're coming up with their price of $319,160. They're showing us the property that we have as our subject, and they're showing us the off-market properties they used. Now, we can see that these are sold properties, and we can see how long they've been sold for. So I would agree that these are all within the last 6 months, and as you can see, they're all in very close proximity. So this is a beautiful community, probably very accurate in their RVM. Let's say you're doing Winter Park. The RVM is going to be terrible, I guarantee that. Let's say you're doing an area in St. Cloud. Probably off. So remember, the RVM is going to be the closest to actual in a like-kind community. Any kind of community that's been built by a couple of builders, that you have sales that are actually showing within the last 6 months, guarantee that's going to be a pretty close RVM. Carrie, did you find that this RVM is close to what you guys are listing this for? I can't hear you on mute. Carrie! Yeah,
okay, here we go. We're probably going to go on the higher end of the range just because their home, in doing research, the other homes with similar square footage are going under contract within 1 day. So I think we're going to
push the market.
Huh?
You're going to push the market.
We're going to push it a little bit.
Well,
Just
there's
a-
nothing wrong with that. I love it. But you just want to have a good understanding when you're looking at this RVM, because this RVM can be shown on your report or not shown in your report. And if it pops up on your report, let's say you're doing a property in Winter Park and the RVM is way off from what you're coming
Yeah.
up with. I would definitely take that RVM off your report, because you don't want to explain, well, the automated valuation system is pulling up all the homes in the general vicinity within 1 mile, right? And your home doesn't compare to any of these homes in 1 mile. So I wouldn't even want that conversation. So I would make sure that when you're doing your report, whichever one you choose to do, you don't show that. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say, guys, we're going to go ahead and do a CMA in here. There are 2 different kinds of comp analysis that you can use. So let's talk about them. One is the comparative analysis, and this is the one that we typically use. It's based on comps, and you can modify it and adjust it a bit, but this is probably the most similar to most realtors that they use. The sales comparison analysis is what an appraiser uses, and appraisers do use RPR, believe it or not. So we're going to look at both, and I want to show you the pros and the cons. Now, when you're in the sales comparison, the important thing to know is you need to have a good idea of what will change a value. And we can't make this stuff up, but I will tell you, we all know that an appraisal is an art, not a science. But Kelly Kellogg, who I think is fabulous, has this great sheet right here of basic cost valuation guides. So I'd be happy to send this to anybody who doesn't have one, who wants it. I've printed one out here in the office so I can keep some here at the offices. But it gives you an idea. And again, it is general, but it's based on the price of the home. Okay, so we have different ranges here. The difference in age, how much that will be based upon the price point of the home. The pool. Now, I'm going to tell you, as you see, there are pools that will cost well over $150,000, but you'll notice they're going to have to be in the $1 million range to really get some good value. Appraisers, in general, do not like to give good value on pools. So that's something to keep in mind. When you've got a home with a pool, they will give value for a pool, but they're much stingier on the pool and the lower end prices than they are in over $1 million. The screen enclosure. A lot of people don't realize that screen enclosure has a lot of value. It does add a lot to the pool. The spa, of course. Your screen porch. This is, you know, those folks that just choose not to have a pool, but they do have a screen porch. That gives a lot of value. I was talking to an agent, I can't remember who it was, just yesterday, and they were saying the things, oh, I think it was Tammy, the things that I felt would be a really big valuation difference when she talked to the appraiser really wasn't. So she thought the fact that it had a larger home site would have been counterbalancing the fact that it has a 3-car garage. And as you'll see, a 3-car versus a 2-car actually adds a lot of value. It's really hard to say. Like if you're looking at a view, you can see she's got some really great price point differentials on views. Now, anybody who worked for a builder is going to know we charge way more than some of these things you're seeing for different views, but that's okay. Remember, when you buy from a builder, those prices are really inflated, and you have to make sure that if you have a person you're trying to sell their home that is just recently bought it as a new build, they're probably not going to get a lot out of all those options they added. So this is a great report you can show people too, in case you don't want to do the sales comparison, but you want to show people that. Marble granite versus Formica, right? You don't see marble granite versus quartz. You don't see that. They don't care. It's solid surface. So it's important that you understand what types of things bring value. This isn't all of them, but this is a really great guide. Has anybody been using this guide? Anybody?
Carrie, can I ask you a question regarding that? If somebody comes and says, I'd like to make some improvements on my home, what do you think are the 3 best improvements that they could make to add value? The screen?
Well, here you go. It first depends on, are they adding value and wanting to enjoy it? Or are they adding value because they want to sell it right away?
Because they want to sell.
Kitchen, master bath.
So yeah, your kitchens and your master baths are going to be your quickest turnaround on your money, but you've got to be very careful to not overdo it. Like I said, nobody cares about quartz. So you think you're doing all this great stuff adding quartz. Now, there is an intrinsic value. People might be drawn to it, but the appraiser is not going to give them the value for that. right? Anything that could add square footage, it will always be a value. But again, if you're adding square footage, that's probably going to be a bigger cost, going to require a lot of permitting. So I wouldn't take that on unless you said, well, I want to make some changes now. We plan to be in the home for the next 3 to 5 years. So I want to make sure that the changes I make will help me when I sell it in 3 to 5 years, but I really want to do these things because I want to enjoy it. That's a totally different conversation than I want to sell it. And a lot of times, to be honest, so you go and redo a kitchen, and let's say you spend $15,000 on a kitchen, which is pretty reasonable, right? Well, they may not like anything you've chosen. So you just shot yourself in the foot. So sometimes you're better off just offering a credit that you can put into Realtor Comments saying that the seller is willing to give a credit of XYZ, 15,000, whatever the dollar amount is, for the new buyer to come in and do their own kitchen renovation. And you can even offer Center State Bank will do a renovation loan, so you can roll it into the loan. So these are the things that I would honestly, if I, paint all day long, landscaping, you better do it. It's that has to do with how it looks. But changing out cabinetry, I mean, listen, if they're like from the 1940s and you might just want to paint them just to make it look neat and clean, and then let somebody else go ahead and change it. Because the reality is, whatever you think you're going to put into it today, you think you're going to pull out tomorrow, it's not always that easy, because a lot has to do with if you chose the right materials, colors, right? And that is, or if it's a structural thing, like for example, if you're redoing a kitchen, but maybe you could have knocked down a wall, but by redoing this kitchen, now you can't knock down the wall. If you're doing a home downtown, that's a lot of those little homes are very weird shapes. And what's really going to help those is opening those things up. But you don't necessarily want to do that because you don't know what the new buyer is going to want. So again, I'm going to say, be very careful when you have that conversation with people. In general, yes, kitchens and bathrooms are probably the number one that people love to say that's going to make a big difference in your home. Flooring too. Flooring is a big one. But I will say you have to look at the cost differential. Will you actually get your money out of it? You're never going to get dollar for dollar, right? Unless you get it, it's a blower upper and you're flipping it. Now we're talking like a totally different ballgame. But if you're talking about a nice home, that kind of thing, you're just wanting to update it, it's a case-by-case situation. Does anybody else have any insider information they'd like to share on that?
Hi, Carrie. Good morning. What about lot size?
What?
Lot size.
So, Alex, interesting that you say that. They really don't have much for lot size here. So what I recommend doing when you're talking about lot size is, now if it's in an area that it's in a like-kind community, it's very simple to compare similar homes and see what the differential is in a larger home site. The reality is builders are going to add, depending on the price of the community, but if it's just a little larger, maybe $5,000 to $10,000, that doesn't mean the appraiser is going to give that to you at all. Now, if you're talking 2 to 5 acres, now we have to look at the acreage cost, and we can figure that out, sometimes doing a different type of report that we figure out what the lot cost looks like, and then we add the home to it. So it's really going to depend. If it's a farm out in the middle of Ocala, we may have to break that cost down a little different. If it's in a like-kind community, a little larger lot's probably not going to add that much value, a couple thousand.
Like a 0.18 versus a 0.16 wouldn't have no much difference.
No, not at all.
That's what
If you're saying a quarter to a half, now we're talking, right? That's a big differential. But if you're talking about, minor details like that, no. Honestly, being in a cul-de-sac, you don't see a cul-de-sac here. They don't really have that. Cul-de-sac is really about the personal's choice, right? So in builders, when we come and price out a whole community, we're going to put lot premiums on cul-de-sac because we know people like them. But we don't know that the appraiser is going to give any value for that at all. Now, because you're in a cul-de-sac, you also happen to have views, totally different thing. It's going to be more based on the view than the location. For example, if you're buying a home and the street is perpendicular and there's a home where the street runs, most people don't like that. They don't like the headlights coming right at that home. If you didn't know that, we price that a little differently on purpose because we know that they don't really like that. The appraiser's not going to look at any of that. He doesn't care. It's a home. If the homes are the same, the home sites are the same, it's the same. He's not looking at northeast exposure versus west exposure. They're not looking at any of those things. They will not give you a different valuation on any of that. Anybody else have anything to share? Nope. Moving on.
I would love to have that, Carrie. If you could send it to me, I would love to have that page.
Absolutely. I'll send it out.
Thank you.
Send it out to everybody. Yeah, it's a great little sheet. Kelly Kellogg also does a great CMA class, and she offers at Sephora. She's doing some online right now. I will tell you, here's a couple major points that when you're considering what is an appraiser looking for. Let's just go over some of the basics, because when we're talking about a CMA, we have to think like an appraiser, right? So an appraiser wants to make sure that it's 6 months or newer. Again, as you saw here, there is a timing differential for age. There's also a timing differential for market condition. So that's not on here, but that's a whole formula. So just because if a home is 3 years older or 5 years older, but the market is completely different now, there's two valuations that have to be added to that. There's age and market condition. So it's a little bit more complicated. That's why it's always best to keep it within 6 months, right? Second thing, keep it within a mile. They really don't want you going outside a mile. Sometimes do we have to? Absolutely. You have a farm in the middle of Ocala, you're more than a mile right there, right? So there's times when we have to go outside. It's a winter park and everything around it hasn't been redone, you know, so there's some times that we have to go outside of it. But that is the benchmark. A mile, 6 months, 200 square feet on either side. That's the differential usually where they like to stay. So sometimes we have to open it wider, right? Because we may not be able to find those comps. But if you can, you want to try to keep it, if the home is 2,000 square feet, go to 1,800, go to 2,200. Now, I will tell you something you all need to know. The homes that are smaller always sell at a higher price per square foot. So if you've got, let's say, a 2-story, it's one of the few 2-stories in the community, you're comparing it, that 2-story is 3,600 square feet, everything else is around 2,600 square feet. Understand that they're not going to be dollar for dollar for the price per square foot, because two things, it costs much more to build a single story. You have much more lot space you're utilizing, much more roof. There's a lot more cost that goes into a single story versus a 2-story. A 2-story is just a box, right? So your lot size is smaller, but the price per square foot is less usually than the smaller single story home, so you know. So when you're trying to figure it out, and you have to open it up because this is one of the very few homes in the community that may be a 2-story or maybe larger, keep in mind you can't go to a home that sold for 2,400 square feet and say, oh, that's the price per square foot we're going to come in. Chances are probably not going to be accurate. Okay, everybody good on that?
I had a quick question, Carrie.
Sure.
So conservation, do they consider that, do you know if they consider that a view, or
So
would
yes,
that change anything?
they usually consider that a green belt.
A green belt, okay.
Now here's a little fun one, okay? When a builder sells a lot on conservation, it's conservation probably for about 10 feet typically, right? That's usually the conservation belt, the green belt. And then what's on the other side, hopefully, is the unknown. So here's an example of that. In Winter Garden, right by the Winter Garden Village, prior to the Winter Garden Village coming out, there's a big community over there, Stonecrest, and they charged huge lot premiums to be on conservation. And they were conservation for 10 feet, but on the other side was a farm, right? So it looked like conservation for miles until Winter Garden Village built up, and now their view is the parking lot. So they tried to sue the builders, but they couldn't, because the builder didn't know what the future land use of the farm was going to be. It wasn't under contract at the time. And the other problem was that there still is conservation. So you did buy conservation, but be very careful when you're talking about conservation. You need to understand how deep is that conservation and what the heck's on the other side. Is everybody good with that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Marima. Good to hear you. Okay, so as we go, if you have any more questions, stop me. First, we're going to look at the normal comparative market CMA. This is going to be something that most of you are going to be extremely comfortable with. Those of you who are new at, I highly recommend starting here. You're always, an either kind you use, going to have to confirm the home facts. Here's a little interesting tidbit. Sometimes, for example, property appraisers, and that's what a lot of times you're comparing it to, may be off. So what do we give the valuation to? right? Sometimes in the MLS, you'll see we actually call out where the square footage came from. Did it come from property appraisers or did it come from the MLS? And the reason that you often see, usually when they'll defer to the MLS versus property appraisers, it's because it was shown in the MLS as larger square footage. And so therefore it's going to change the value, right? And the reason that the homeowner may not have gone back to the county to say, hey, wait a minute, I have more square footage, is because they didn't want to increase their taxes. So we can actually make those adjustments here simply for value. And if there is, and I see all the time that there's discrepancies like this, we need to make sure we're notifying either Cindy or Jen, whoever the OA is, so we know how to correctly record that in the MLS. Was it based on property appraisers' records? Is it based on the MLS? Okay. And of course, that's why we always put on the bottom, all square footage is to be confirmed by buyer's agent. Don't you love how we like to pass that off? But the reality is we can't be held liable. A lot of times people will go by the actual drawings, renderings from the builder, you know, the floor plans. Well, guys, we're building this out in the middle of the elements. I can't tell you they're all going to be exact. They're not. So, you know, you could say it's also based off of the floor plan. But just know that there could very well be a differential, and that could come up during the appraisal, just so you know. Another interesting one, I had seen one recorded as 5 bathrooms, 3 baths. Yeah, I think it was like 5-3. It was supposed to be a 5-3, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, but it was recorded reverse. The homeowners never changed it. They were aware of it. They acted like they weren't at first, but they were. They just didn't want to pay more, because you're going to pay more for the differential in the bedroom than you will in the differential in the bath. So that's why they never changed it with property appraisers, but it totally changed the value here to notate properly that there's actually 5 bedrooms, not 5 bathrooms. Does that make sense? Good. I'm going to assume that meant yes. When I hear silence, I'm going to hear yes, Carrie.
Yes.
The question? No? Okay.
Carrie.
Hey, Maria. Okay, I got the Carrie, but
I keep on getting.
what?
I get.
Maria, better to text me because I can't hear you. You keep breaking in and out. So text me and I'll answer your question. Okay, so moving on, again, so where are we going to compare this information to if we have not been to the home? As obviously property appraisers. Now, if you notice there is a discrepancy, make sure to address this with the homeowner when you're there on the listing presentation. You want to see if they're aware of that, because you don't want this to come up later. Perfect example, we actually were in the process of purchasing a home for a customer, and we weren't buying it obviously, but we were representing the home, and it was supposed to be like 5,000 or 5,500 square feet, something like that. In Mount Dora, it was over $1 million. And the buyers went into the property with our agent, and they're like, where's the 5,000 square feet? It just didn't feel like it. It was 2,000 square feet off. Huge. So they must have originally had a plan to build a 5,500 square foot home, but in the middle of the process decided, maybe for cost, maybe for whatever reason, they would build it smaller. Now, the sellers acted like they had no idea. I highly doubt that. But that did blow that deal up, and it didn't close, because that changed completely the valuation of what that home would be worth, right? So it is important to make sure you're doing your due diligence before going to a listing presentation and look in property appraisers to see what they're showing. Okay, everybody good on that? All right, I'm going to say confirm all facts. I'm going to assume that they're correct. Then we're going to go ahead and find our comps. Now, this is where we're going to utilize that information we just talked about, okay? Also, if it's single family, stay within single family. So if it's townhomes, definitely don't go to condos. Obviously, we know that, but I'm just bringing that up because the appraisers are really looking at that. I don't care about anything active for sale. I don't care about it. I might look at it to see what our competition is later, but in terms of coming up with value, it has no matter. I could say my home's worth $1 million. Hey, does anyone want to buy it for $1 million? Because that'd be great. I'll sell it to you today. Because it's not really worth $1 million. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not going to appraise for that. Sadly, I'm so sad about that. But anyway, that's the reality. So pending also, I could care less about pending. I might look at pending to get a trend, the idea like Carrie was saying, things are pending in a day, Those are the things. I might even reach out to some of those agents and ask them to depend at or near the asking price. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. They can if the seller allows them to. But those are the things I want to know for trends, for what's happening, to get an idea of my pricing strategy. But in terms of coming up with actual value, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I only want to look at solds. That's what the appraisers are going to look at. They're going to look at the price per square foot that is closed, right? And if it's pending, it could have been asking that million and it pended at 500, right? Like, we have no idea. Okay, so notice it'll auto-populate, or at least I said it there, within the last 6 months. And this is what are we looking at here? A 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. So I might go to a 3. I might go to 2, but really a 3-2 is very different than a 4-3. So if it were me, I would really try to, at first, to try to keep it as close as possible. 4-3. If I have to, I will vary that. But if you think about it, a 3-2 home is very different than a 4-3, right? So if we're talking about 5-4 and a 4-3, not that much of a difference. But a 3-2 and a 4-3, there's a difference in that home. Probably the builders had that in a completely different section, if you think about it, right? So keep that in mind. The living square foot. Now notice this is like a huge range. The actual living square footage of this home is 2,061. So I'm not going to go to 1,500 because that's a totally different price per square foot. So 2,061, I'm going to go to 1,861. And then I'm not going to go to 2,600. I'm going to go to 2,261. I'm going to try to get it as close as I can. Lot size, I'm not going to touch. This is a like-kind community. However, if I'm somewhere else where these are larger home sites, they're older communities, I might add in lot size because that will be a differential. If there's homes in there that are 1/4 acre because they're newer and homes in there that are 1/2 acre or lower, right? That is going to be a difference in value. I don't care about year built. Now, this is something you need to think about. Most like-kind communities, you'd say, they're probably built around the same time frame. Unless you're looking at a community like Turtle Creek. Does everybody know Turtle Creek? Turtle Creek was a Levitt community that had all these beautiful models made, and then Levitt left the business here in Florida when everything tanked. And there was about 22 people who closed in that community. This is a huge community. So needless to say, after the crash, they kept trying to sell the community, trying to parcel it off. There's a huge differential in when some of these homes are built. So in that instance, I would definitely use the year built, because you can't look at a home that was built in 2010 and compare it to a home that's built in 2019. Let's be honest, right? You can't look at a home that was built in 2002 to a home that's built in 2006. And you know why? Build quality is totally different. In 2004, when those hurricanes came through, all of our building codes changed. If you guys didn't know that, huge changes. They used to only pour the block in the corners. That was the code. After the hurricanes came through, you had to pour them every 8 feet. So these things have kept changing. They continue to change, but the largest changes in all of our building code in Central Florida has been in 2005, 2004, 2005. So depending on when the home was built. It was built in January, not so much, but it's the hurricane season. So that's when they changed a lot of those codings. So you need to be aware of that. It is a differential. Also, there are communities that had lawsuits because of the building quality, and that's why building codes have changed. So it would be good for you to be aware of some of those communities. And I will tell you, one such community was actually Summerport. And it was because Ashton Woods did not create enough overhang. And so when the water came in, it came in and filled up all the block, because the block was empty. So in those instances, it's good to know I would have mold done if I was on the buying side there. So just a couple things to throw out to you. But moving on, if you have any questions, let me know. So here we're gonna search, and we found 3. Now listen, I'm good with 3. For me, 3 is the perfect number. I don't need to get 5, 10. I don't want 5 and 10. I think it's confusing. If I need to open it up, I will. Notice though, none of these, oddly enough, have been used in the RVM, which I find really weird. So they show me on the map. Let's take a quick peek. Oh, well, this one is where we are. And unfortunately, these homes are not even in the same community. So that's a problem. Now we have to know, we have to open this up a little bit, because these homes over here, and this is our subject property, these homes in this subdivision are probably not the same as these homes in this subdivision, right? So we need to open something up. So now we got to go back and modify our search. So maybe we go ahead and bring out the bedrooms. We go to 3 2s. Okay, maybe we change the square footage slightly. And I hate to do this, but let's do this. What the heck happened there? Let's say 1,700, and let's go to 2,300. Really don't like to do that, but sometimes we have to see if we can get more okay, so we've gotten more comps that have come up. Now, it'll tell you here if there's a star, if this is one of the things they had used in their comp analysis. So let's say I'm going to look at this Magnolia. Now, the good thing is I can see this was sold in in February of this year, so that's a good one. But I also want to see where this property was located and on the map, and I want to take a peek at it and see, does this actually compare to the home that I'm looking at? So I'm actually going to look through the home, see if it's a similar build quality, see what the year it was built at. I'm going to take a quick peek to see if I think that this home actually is a good comp. Now, again, if it's over here, in my opinion, it's not. So I want to stay in that mile. So I'm going to also look at the distance it is. This is 0.6. This is 0.1. So 0.1, we know it's the same community. They've used it in the RVM. We're going to add that to our comps. So there we have Sycamore Woods. So this one was also 0.15. It's got to be in the same community. They've used it. We're going to use that. Now, normally, guys, I would be looking at each of these, but for the purpose of training, we're not going to at this moment. You guys know how to look to see, is it a similar build quality? Are these totally renovated and that one's not, right? Those are the things we're going to be looking at. But for the moment, just so that we can go through the process, we're going to say, again, 0.22. Now, these that are half a mile or more, those are more than likely the ones over in this community. And in my opinion, because we have enough in this community, I wouldn't go outside. So I probably would stick with really the 3 that they had from their RVM, and I would then look at this. I am looking at price per square foot. Notice, is this an outlier? This is 155. These two are pretty close. So I'm going to take a peek. Now, this is a 2-story and the other 2 are single stories. So maybe not so much an outlier, right? Because what do we talk about? The double 2-story homes are less price per square foot. The living square footage is 2,200, it's probably one of the larger ones. And we can see also, this is pretty renovated. That's a shame that it was. This is actually pretty nice. Bummer. Okay, so let's go back and look at the actual property itself. Single story home. So I would probably try to keep more within the single stories. These 2 are single stories, but I probably wouldn't go outside to pull another single story. We could, but I might keep that one in there just to see. The reality is, though, if you ask me, this is probably a better comp because of the single story versus the 2 stories. This is going to bring down the price point of that home. Kara, did you use this one?
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually, can you hear me?
Yep.
So yeah, we actually ended up going down to the Great Commission.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a better comp. However,
yeah.
You know, this one is built in 2016. These are newer, 2017. This is 2015. So it's pretty comparable, I would say, with that. Square footage is pretty close, which is good. Yeah. But what I think makes more sense is because it's a single story home versus the 2-story. And now you can see why would this one be so much less? It looks like it's a beautiful shape. It's the square footage and the fact that it's a 2-story.
Mm-hmm.
But for fun, let's throw in this one. Was it that Great Commission one? I don't think so. Let's take that one out. I'm going to add this one. Yeah. Okay, we're going to update our valuation. Now, we can adjust our comps, guys. I don't know how many of you guys are using this. This is important for you. If you really looked at all the pictures, you don't necessarily have to go. But let's say, for example, we know that our property was totally renovated. So we might say everything else is worse. We can do that. We can say better. It's not giving us the exact valuation, but we're saying that comparatively, our property was just gorgeous. It was totally renovated. None of these were. So we can make a simple valuation here. without having to know the exact cost of everything used. So this is a great way to slightly adjust the comps without having to pull out our CMA guide and decide, okay, they added a kitchen, their square footage is right. So this is a simpler way to do that. The property type we know is the same. It's giving us the information here. We can add some notes if we want to about why we're saying this is different compared to the other property, right? And then it will make the valuations for us. So we can go ahead and say, I'm just gonna be for fun, this one's worse, this one is better, and this one is better, let's just say. So you see, they're giving some valuations that will populate on the bottom as adjustments. That's what that comes from. Now, we're not gonna do any of that because the truth is, I haven't looked at any of these things, so that would just be silly. So I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm gonna say update valuations. Had we done, well, actually, let's do that really quick. One really cool thing, let's say I did say this is better, this is worse, and this is better, right? So remember, you never adjust the subject property. Everybody knows that, right? And if you don't, just nod your head and say, of course I knew that. Never adjust the subject property. So if the subject property is better, you have to do what? Do you add or subtract?
Add.
If the subject property is better, then yes, you add. If the subject property is worse, then you subtract. If the subject property has 3 bedrooms, but the other one has 4, right? What are we gonna do?
Reduce the other one.
Exactly, because we're trying to make it the same as the current property that we're looking at, right? So that's the thing to remember. Some people get confused. Are we adding? Are we subtracting? What the heck? We're trying to make it as if it was the same as our subject property. So if this one has a pool and our subject property doesn't, we have to subtract for the pool, right? Because we're trying to figure out the value of a property that doesn't have a pool. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, so since all these are 3s, do we make it worse?
Well, yeah. So the 3s, I wouldn't make them worse because this is, well, wait, you're right. This is a 4. Yeah. Well, but what's the square footage? So here's a question, and actually this came up with Tammy yesterday. That appraiser said to her, the square footage is what matters, not the number of bedrooms. I'm gonna tell you based on the appraiser, it's gonna be a little bit of both, but 9 out of 10 times square footage always wins. So if you have 4 tiny little bedrooms and 3 big, huge bedrooms, you're not gonna lose a ton of value. What you may lose is a customer who wants a 4-bedroom. Right? It's really more of a desirability for that customer than the appraised value because they really base it more on the square footage. So, a great question. All right.
I have a question. Terry.
Sure. Go ahead.
So I was doing a CMA for a community, and they have 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and my subject is a 1 bedroom, and all the sold bedroom. And I found out that on the county record, they said this 1 bedroom is 1330. But then I talked to the builder, and the builder said that survey was wrong. It's 135 square foot off. So that's tremendous despair range. If I use the county record, the appraisal value is 375,000. But if I use the actual measure, is come to $325,000. It's $50,000 difference. So what would I do?
That's a great question. Anybody want to answer that before I chime in? So we can sell it all day long. And which one was better, the property appraiser or the county, or the builder? Which one had a higher value?
The county appraiser.
Okay.
On the county
So
side.
we could list it that way with the county appraiser, but if we know the actuality of it is, it's actually smaller.
Yes.
Then what's going to happen is it could try to force your price, but when you go to sell it, know that the appraiser is going to look at that square footage and they're going to adjust it in and it's not going to appraise. So it's really a conversation that you have with the seller. It could be a strategy. The question is, listen, the county property appraiser is saying this. We could use this number because this is what's published. It's going to be, the onus is going to be on the buyer's agent, right? The buyers to go ahead and verify the square footage. Of course, if they're cash, they may not, but if it's an appraiser, they will. So you got to understand that if the square footage is actually much less, which is what the builder is saying, it's not going to appraise for this number. It's a conversation you're having. But On the converse side, if you start lower and it's much higher in the property appraiser, then, you know, what if the appraisal comes in higher because maybe the builder was off? Like, do we actually know? The builder's just talking about a floor plan, right?
No, they actually, it's condo conversion. The
Right, but
developer actually
did
went
the
in and
developer
measured
actually measure that specific unit, or is he going by his floor plans?
No, they actually went in because it was the original developer was all off with the county somehow.
Ah,
So I think it's significant because, you
It
know,
is
you're talking about 10% difference.
it is a significance. So, you know, I don't necessarily, you're not doing anything wrong if you list it with the property appraiser's numbers. You're not. But you have to be very clear with the seller. This is going to change. And you might want to reflect your price already on a differential.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's really not necessarily how much you're putting it as, it's really what you're coming in with the price. Because the appraiser is going to come up with his own valuation, and that's going to be based off of the square footage they find. And they don't typically go by county records, they usually do it themselves, right? So I'm going to share with you, it could go one way or the other, but if it were me, I don't want to set that seller up for a negative experience when they think they're going to get this much more money, and they end up, the appraiser comes in and says it's totally wrong if we know that that's actually the case. Right?
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. So we're going to say update valuation. And here's, it says, get your seller's report. Now you can review your comp analysis here, or we can say create report. We're going to look at this creating report because I want us to also look at the sales comparison to see the differential. Now, one thing, always click on more details. There are so many papers that come in a listing presentation. I'm telling you, don't need all these things. And if you print them all out, first of all, someone told me it was 76 pages, okay? Don't kill all of that paper. I mean, that poor tree didn't need to die. You're not gonna show all those papers. So you know, you can add in custom pages. I'd be happy to show you guys that if you want me to show you at the end. But if you want, if this is something you're going to be sending somewhere, or you're going to be adding, for example, into a flip book, then I would say go ahead and add those custom pages if you want them in your flip book. If not, you can always just not have them checked. Subject property summary is the important thing. The property value, listing price, estimated value change. I want to show you what this looks like. If you have a question, it'll show you where they're making those changes. Comp analysis results, they're going to show all this as one page, but they show you how they're doing that. Do not add the home facts, extended home facts. Refined value could be interesting. This is where I would add it. If you have refined the value, add it. I'm going to tell you that I had an agent who was very nervous to use this refined value because these folks had not done any updating at all. The home was, you know, pink carpet. I mean, it looked like, you know, Pepto-Bismol exploded. It was horrible. And so we really needed to let them see, yes, their neighbors had been selling higher. The reason the neighbors were selling for higher is they had all renovated their property. So we refined the values saying better, worse, doing that, okay? When this was printed out and brought to this customer, they thought a computer came up with that. They didn't think it was the agent saying it was better or worse. And she was able to get that price in a better alignment because they thought, oh, I get it. But it's better than you saying, yeah, that Pepto-Bismol color, that's been gone a long time, right? You don't want to have that conversation quite like that. So it can really assist you in trying to get the proper price. Property photos, historical photos, you don't need any of that garbage. Market activity, I hate that heat map thing. Who looks at that? Financing activity, let's not look at that. Market health charts, these are terrible. I don't like them either. Your comps, do not select all market comps. You're gonna have all of this comp stuff that's not even gonna be relevant to this property. Only select your comps. To me, the rest of this garbage, I wouldn't even know. Pricing strategy, you might want to add that. It depends on really kind of what you're doing. So if you have a refined value or the comp analysis calculation, that's when you really want to make sure you're doing that. We're going to look at this. Seller proceeds, I don't like it here. I'm going to tell you why. Remember, if we say it, we own it. I would all day long rather do a net sheet from a title company, because if it is wrong, who's wrong? the title company. It's not us. So be very careful about using the seller proceeds here. You know, oh, I forgot to tell you that I had a HELOC also. And now they're like, well, these are all wrong. Well, you didn't tell me you had a HELOC. You know, it gets you in this kind of fighting kind of a situation. We want to be their partners. We want to assist them. And it's much better to have the title company give us that information. And you can fill it out for the title company yourself. Go to Celebration Title, go to Logos Law. I'm sure there's a bunch of them. They have the calculators right there. They'll do it. They'll put your picture in it. They make it super nice, but it's got their name on it. So you're not liable, okay? RPR data, nobody cares. I never put that on there either. If you have notes, you could put them in there. I typically never use that functionality, but you could, especially if this is something that you've really worked on, why the subject property is different, you can put all that. So we're gonna just go ahead and you could put the person's name there. I'm gonna say training. If they don't see that, I could send this. Don't send a comp report. I don't ever recommend sending it because they're gonna get it before you can go over it with them. So even if you're doing this virtually, you both should be looking at it at the same time. And if you've sent it to them, they're gonna look at it without you and they're gonna make determinations on how they feel about what you've done. So be very careful. It's all about timing with the CMA. Everybody good with that? Plus, never leave a CMA if they don't list with you. Because often they'll give it to some other agent and let them use your pricing CMA in your work. Don't do that. Or worse, they'll go for sale by owner with your stuff. No. So that's the other reason I don't like to send it to them. So I'm going to say display now and I'm running my report. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to run, and I love the ding dong, but the second half, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the results page. And we're going to try the other analysis. Okay, let's just go home. Can we go back to home? Go back. So slow. All right, so I'm going to pull out my recent search. That's still loading. I don't even see it here. Seller's report, that's not it. Let's just paste it in there again. Sad. Okay, search for it again. We shouldn't have had to done that, but we did it, so whatever. We're gonna go back to comp analysis, and now we're gonna try the cell comparison. So we're gonna select sales comparison analysis. Again, now you're gonna put in if you are, notice this, if you're an appraiser. So I'm not an appraiser, so don't show this again, skip this step. But see, appraisers actually use this. That's pretty cool. Confirming facts, again, it's the same process. The appraisers do it just like we do it. So they are looking to see if that square footage matches and so on and so forth. Okay, finding comps. Again, do you want to copy the comps? No, let's just do the same process again so we can take a quick look at it. It's going to be the similar thing, so we're going to only get those. I probably should have said yes. Let's keep it big for a second, and then we'll just pull in the 3. Okay, so we're going to use this one we used, this one we used, this one we don't want to use. And we're going to pull in this one. And let's just pull in the single stories this time, okay? Because we're going to think more, is this a 2-story? Let's take a quick peek at this thing. Did you guys think it looked like a 2-story in that picture? I kind of felt like it did. It looks like a 2-story to me. I'm not going to pick that one. So, see, they used it in the RVM, and I'm not going to. I want a single story, and I'm going to pick this great. This is the one, Kara, right? This? No, this is the Great Commission. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go with those 3. Again, we don't need 50. I think people overcomplicate things by having too many. We're trying to get the most comparable properties. Okay, update valuation. Now we're going to do some adjusting of comps, but this is where that spreadsheet, this little guide will come in handy, okay? So this is where an appraiser actually comes in and they say, you know, where we're going to go ahead and take. So the total number of bedrooms is 4. This is 3. So we would go and say this price is properly about the 300s, right? So we're going to look at we're going to look at this 250, right? Let's look in that range. And we're going to see what a bedroom looks like. And, you know, funny enough, they have the bathroom. Where's my bedroom? Did you guys not see a bedroom on here?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Did she take that off? So I'm going to say a bedroom, let's give it 1,500. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put down here, we're going to say 1,500, but what do we have to do? Do we have to add it or subtract it?
Subtract.
Got to add it because the subject property has it. So we're trying to make this property like the subject property, right? The total number of bathrooms are the same, nothing to do there. We've got the living area. This is a little bigger. So what do we have to do?
Subtract.
Subtract. Good. So there is a calculation, and I don't think she has it on here, about the square footage, how you subtract, how you come up with the square footage differential. This is so minor, 100 square feet. I'm actually not going to do much. I'm just going to leave it for now. But there is a formula for that. It gets a little bit convoluted, and that's why you really want to try to stay down. The 1,700, I probably will adjust that a bit, right? Okay. Lot size, so similar. I'm sorry, 524 square feet is nothing. I'm not going to change it. Lot dimensions, again, same thing. They both have a garage. Okay. Is there a pool? No pool. This is built in 2016. When was this one built? It doesn't tell us. Okay. Well, we can't adjust it if we don't know. So if we find out what this is, let's say this is 2016. I'm totally lying. I have no idea. I can go ahead and put that in there, right? If I find that it was 2012, I wouldn't have pulled it up, but it's going to make that differential for us. So I'm going to put that in there just for fun, but really I don't know if that's true. I'm just making that up. Okay. Shingle. Now, I don't think she has it on here. Does she have the roof type? Yep, roof versus shingle. This is a big differential that a lot of people don't realize. Many communities will have a mix between shingles and roof tiles. There is a significant amount of money, and I'm going to tell you, a builder in this price point is going to probably charge 30 grand just to have those shingles put on. So there is a differential in the cost for the shingle versus the tile roof. I would always calculate for that. This obviously is the same. We don't need to, but let's say that one of them is totally renovated or something. I can add a new row, and I can put in here what custom features, like if I wanted to say, let's add, for example, enter your own fact, renovated. Let's say we want to add that. I can go ahead and add a renovated, and I could say not renovated, or this was renovated, you know, he spent $25,000. I can now try to calculate a little bit for renovation if I wanted to. So you can add rows in here, which is pretty cool. Again, we're not appraisers, so be very careful. You might want to do this one for fun if you're really having trouble evaluating things, but maybe not show the customer this, right? Because we don't want the customer to think, well, this is what you came up with. Why didn't the appraiser come up with that? Right? Let's not go there. You say it, you own it. But this could be a really good thing for you to really try to figure out, how am I good on value? You know, there's a lot of times we ask ourselves, am I close on the value? How am I feeling? This is a good way to start getting used to what a valuation differential will look like, okay? And then it'll tell you the adjustments they made. So you'll have it right there. You can weigh the percentage of the comp. So let's do a couple more just for fun, although I know we're running low on time. Everybody okay for a few minutes to go extra?
Carrie, I had a question about the square footage, and just currently because of the pandemic, I read that the appraisers were not going into the properties. So then are they going off the county records?
So it's not just all properties. If the property is falling in line, and there's this big database, I think it's through FHAVA, it's a government database, and it has tons of valuations. So if this home is in a like-kind community and they have all of these valuations in there already, and this home is totally coming in line with what the other homes have sold for, that's when they say we don't even need to do an appraisal. I mean, that is exactly what's happening. But if it's, for example, we had the situation where it was flagged by that system saying this home is showing much higher than the like kind. That's when sometimes they do a drive-by, So they may not go into the home, but they may drive by the home, but then they're searching through public records. They're going to actually, they may call other realtors. You know, how many times have you guys been called for information? So that's when they're trying to find information to see if it's accurate. So it's a great question, Marima, but just know they're not really doing it if it's very similar community and there's a lot of comps and it's coming in right in line with the valuation. They're just doing it. Let's say you want to push this home, Carrie, you want to push it 25,000 above what everybody else is sold for. Not that you are, but let's say you were. That's probably going to get flagged and they're going to come out and appraise this home. Did I answer your question, Marima?
You did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Another thing, since we're talking about that, I think I've brought it up before, but does anybody not know what a tidewater is?
I don't.
Okay, I got some hands. Okay, a tidewater is often found in a VA. That's when you see it the most. I've seen it in FHA, but mostly VA. And so what a tidewater means is a lot of times, like especially with the VA lender, they're not using a local lender. They're using a big national lender, like maybe it's USAA or something like that, or Navy Federal. And so that appraiser is not local. And they're looking in their database and they're not finding value. They're coming in way lower than the purchase price. They call for a tidewater, which I don't know where the heck the name came from. You know, I don't even know what the relevance is, but the point is what a tidewater means is that they will reach out to the listing agent and they will say, please help me get comps. They will give you a list of what type of comps they're looking for. Oftentimes you have to give it to them in the specific forms that they're sending it to you, which is frequently a lot of work, but do it because they're trying to get help creating value for your listing because they're not finding it. So if you ever get, you know, we have a tidewater, it's sometimes, like I said, can be a pain in the neck. I think it was the Navy Federal one. That's really stupid. The form that you have to fill it in. It's like, oh my God, this is like, am I the appraiser? Do it. Because our job is to help our sellers. And so therefore they're reaching out to us because they're not finding value. A tidewater is never because they're overvalued. It is always because they're a specific percentage below what the value is. So you know it's a big gap. So that's what a tidewater is, just in case. Again, it's mostly seen in VA. In case you're dealing with a VA and you get called by the appraiser, or sometimes they send you an email, we have a tidewater and they'll send you the documents and you're like, what in the heck am I supposed to do with this? That's what it is. I want you guys to be aware of that. Okay, good?
Okay, I just want to add something that it is so important. I had a listing on Diamond Cove, and the listing did.
What happened?
I apologize. I had to mute it. So I said that I had a listing on Diamond Cove, and it did not appraise. So I got one of those exactly from Navy Federal. And I give them information on the kitchen renovation and flooring, and I had all the receipts because the seller was super organized. It actually came up to contract price, so it was really good.
Thank you for bringing that up. If you are working with somebody who's done a renovation, it is critical you get them to provide you with at least a spreadsheet, and not just saying kitchen renovation. Cabinetry, how much did it cost? Flooring, how much did it cost? Paint, every little parcel, what was the cost? And the more specific, if it's somebody like an investor, what was the unit price? What did you pay to have it installed? I mean, it could be just total cost, or it can break it down more specifically. It really doesn't matter, but you need to break it down. You can't just say kitchen renovation, right? Why? You have to build the value. I have had more homes appraised by giving that kind of supporting documentation. We actually, I sold a home, in my opinion, the highest home for sure probably ever to be sold in that community, because my investors overdid it. I mean, you know, you don't want to over improve the property. They did, but we actually appraised at value. So that's how we did it. It's critical when you're preparing that package for the appraiser, and I recommend you always do that. Have your comps in there, any renovations that have been done, break it down by price. They will appreciate that, and it will help get that value. So thank you for bringing that up, Bruno. Excellent point. Okay, so let's just do one more for now, just for fun. We're going to look at this home, and we're going to say, okay, so this home's a three bedroom also. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring it up to a 4-bedroom. And again, this isn't a number that Kelly has on her sheet, but the difference here is there's a huge differential in square footage. So I actually might not give any credit for that bedroom, because I might give all that credit in the square footage difference. That's about 400 square foot difference. So maybe there is where I'm going to say that's about say $2,000. They may agree, they may not, because I'm not using the formula right now. It's a quite in-depth formula. Kelly Kellogg also has it on her site if you want. I'd be happy to share that with you too. But again, remember, we're not appraisers. This is just to give us a rough idea. Now, bathrooms. Aha, she has a bathroom. We know the price point we're in. We're in this middle one right here, right? The $250. So she's saying that a bathroom, did I pass bathroom? I can't see because I get the pictures here. Let me move that out of the way. Okay. Bathroom, dun, dun, dun. Full bathroom. We need to know if it's a full bathroom. It's between $3,000 and $5,000. So is it like beautiful? Did they go above, or did they just put in a standard pedestal? And like, so really, what does this extra bathroom? And they should have pictures in there, right? So we're going to give them a differential on the bathroom. Let's go ahead and say it was a pretty nice one. We'll go middle of the road, $4,000, right? Now, of course, we have to add because this is a 3-bath and this is a 2. So we're adding again, right? The square footage, we're adding to get it to the same. The lot size is not significantly different. It's about the same. So that doesn't matter. So I'll have a garage. The year built is a year different. So we can look back at her thing. She says age differential. For 1 year, you could say $1,000. Truthfully, if the build quality is pretty similar and one could have been sold in January, one could have been sold in December, for a year differential, I'm probably not touching that. If you're talking 2-3 years, maybe, right? But a year, probably not going to touch that. Again, shingle, they're all shingle. There is a difference between shingles, just so you know. You have architectural shingles and standard shingles. So if you are requesting to have a roof done, be specific on the type of shingles. A regular shingle does not have very much roof life at all. An architectural shingle could last 30 years. It's just a little point of fact for you guys to know. Slab, they're all monolithic slab. I haven't.
Carrie, Carrie, can I ask a question? Is there a difference for a metal roof?
Mm-hmm. Yes, a metal roof is really costly. Absolutely. I don't know if she has metal roof on here because she really does roof tile. You could utilize the tile cost, but the truth is a metal roof actually costs more than the tile. So if I were using a metal roof, I'd go to the high end of the tile.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the metal roofs are very expensive. Okay. Again, they're going to give the net adjustments and they're going to be bringing the cost to where we want. Now, if I don't feel that this comp is really very accurate because we're off on the bedrooms, we're off on the square footage, I may say less weight here, so less weight. So I might say, you know what, let's just say this is only worth about 20%. Right? I want it in there. So I'm going to make a differential, but this pecan, you know, this is the closest one. So I'm going to say, I'm messing around with the numbers, but let's say I'm going to give this one 40 and I'm going to give this one 40 because these two are really close, and I'm going to give that one. You see, by weighing out how much they're going to take into consideration the value of one, it changed, if you noticed, the comps, how it came out, and it ended up being 166 per square foot. So just for example, if I did 33 and 34, right? It's a little different. So if I really don't think that this is a good comp, maybe I'm going to say it's only worth 10, and I'm going to say that these are worth 40, and this one's worth 50, and now maybe changing my comps again. So it's a good way if you had to add that 2-bedroom in there, but you really don't, the 2-story, but you really didn't think it was a great comp. It's a good way to sort of account for that. Okay. So we're just going to update our valuation. To be honest, we really kind of made up some of these numbers, but that's okay. And then the report is called a valuation report. So we're going to create a report, and we're going to do the same things. You're not going to select all of those crazy things that they have, and they auto-populate it to a valuation report. So notice, the regular one is called a seller's report. When you do the comparative sales analysis, it's a valuation workbook. I'm going to get all that stuff out of there. I'm going to get homeowners facts out. Oh, I don't want any of these things. I don't want photos.
This one.
What was that?
What is the difference again between the both reports you just mentioned?
So we're going to see, we're going to look at both of them, but the difference is one, I actually gave credit or subtracted credit per item. Where the other one, I might have said, generally, this is in better condition. This has better home sites. This has a better view. It's very, it's like, it's a good way to give a little bit of a differential in the valuation without being that appraiser and going, okay, but this one is, 2,000 square feet more. This one, well, that's a lot, but this one is got 4 bedrooms, and this one has 3 baths, and this is only 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, right? So that's breaking it down by item, and that's the one that the appraiser uses. So that's the one we're using right now, and we're going to go ahead and run that report. So now let's look at these reports. We're going to look at the first one. The first one you're all going to be very familiar with, and I want to see my reports. Thank you. Where are my reports? Let me move this out of my way. Well, hello. Reports. Here we are. So this one is already done. So we're going to look at this one. This is the first one that we did, and everybody was probably more comfortable with that. So I have my wonderful little front page. It gives me my comp analysis, gives me the range, and the current estimated value. Remember, that's their RPM. Notice, look how different we are from theirs. And the reason is because they were using a lot of different 2-stories, if you remember, in their valuation that we didn't use. So Carrie, good for you to know that, right? I love.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of where we were at, that range right there.
Yeah, because you got to get that 2-story out of there. That 2-story is like an anomaly in there comparative to the other things. Now, I love this page because it breaks it down very simply. Actually, we have the 2-story in there. Look at that, 155. Interesting. But we still put the other ones in there. So we have 4 comps versus 3. So then it gives you 1 page per thing. So you can lay them out in front of them and not confuse them. Now, don't kid yourself. Probably, depending, if I know I'm going into an appointment with somebody who's very analytical, more than likely, I probably have actives in my bag. I probably have some expires in my bag, right? May have pendings, maybe not. I really hate the pendings because they're stupid, because you have no idea what they pended for unless you were able to talk to an agent. But I'm going to keep them in my bag. Now, if they say, well, yeah, but my neighbor, now I might pull that out, right? But again, less is more. One thing I find in a listing presentation, people get crazy with comps and they put 50 pages in front of they don't even know what they're looking at, guys. Let's not overwhelm them. Marima, do you have a question? I see a hand up. Look at that.
Well, I had it earlier, but then I was like, let me just interrupt you.
Yeah, good, because I didn't see it before. Okay, cool. Go ahead. Oh, you don't have the question anymore. Okay.
No.
We already answered it. Gotcha. You got to take your hand down, my friend. Okay. And then it gives you per page, as we said. Now, see, this one, Care, is the one that's really low. And I wonder if this is the one that's not even in their community. This looks like this is the one that's Sycamore Woods. Is that their community? Because if it's not, I would take it out. Again, I would say this probably may not actually be a great comp. No, this is the one that's not in their community and probably is a good comp. And then this is where I added the recommended pricing strategy. This one I do like. You guys know how I love the tabular stats and MLS. This is essentially a similar thing. They're taking the selected comps, market activity, things that are for sale, distressed, which I don't ever like to look at, but they put it in there, expired, pending, and sold. The ones I care about, of course, are sold, for sale, and of course my comps. But it gives us the idea of the median price. So we see that the median price that has sold is $345. What's on the market is $395, but that doesn't mean anything because these homes have not sold. What sold though is $372. So I might want to say, why are other things in the neighborhoods or in the area selling for more? And maybe they are newer and maybe they have nicer amenities. So you want to, if you're going to use this sheet, you better know if this is more than this, you better know why, because they're going to ask you that. I mean, especially if it's anybody who can read. The days on market, I love that. But see, notice that these median days for the ones we picked are 96 days, where the market activity sold are 55. This is a great opportunity to give them in the right mindset. Look, if you notice, yeah, there are other types of communities. There's new homes, whatever the case may be. They may be selling a little faster. We need to know that homes that are very comparable to yours took 96 days. So we need to keep that in mind. If we can be above that curve, fabulous. But see, this is setting the right expectation. And even though this sales price is higher, right? The average median price is higher. The price per square foot in what I'm showing you is actually higher than the sold comps. And so what does that tell you? This is including bigger homes, right? More square footage, less price per square foot. I mean, look, you're considering an $800,000 home. That is not a true comp. We know that, right? So that is important for you to know what those are. But this is a great sheet. It kind of takes that tabular stated, information and pulls it right in. Sold price comparison again, low price, medium, that's breaking it down. And then this takes out your adjustments. So this is great if you get an opportunity to say, well, if you remember, this one had a pool or this one had an extra bathroom, and you're able to show that and show the details of the comparison analysis. That means that, listen, I'm not saying we can't say ask for 350, but no, probably it's probably going to appraise for less. Right? This just helps set that expectation. We can try to push it, but if we really adjusted for the differences, now again, this one, if you remember, I just kind of moved them around, so this means nothing. So Carrie, don't start thinking about this. Don't overthink any of these adjustments. I was just playing with the dial. I didn't really look at it. Okay? But that's how I would use that. If I didn't even use those dials, you wouldn't even put this, would not even show up. It would just be blank here. Okay. Funny that they have them sign it. This is kind of a fun thing to make them feel that they've signed something, but they really signed nothing. You know what I mean? This is a good sheet for that too. I like that. So if you want to send them the .loop file to sign the agreement, but you have them sign this right there on the spot, it's kind of nice, right? They feel like they're in a contract with you. Are they? No, that's nothing. So that's kind of a fun thing, and you can leave that sheet for them. Then let's go back to the other. Oh, ding dong, last report. Let's peek at the difference. This is the comparative workbook, if you remember. So this is not our typical. It looks the same thus far, doesn't it? But look, notice that the RVM is on this side and the results of our comparison are on this side. Interesting. Now, this is where it's actually breaking down a little bit different about the home. And here's the valuation. It breaks it. It looks like an appraiser's report, doesn't it? So it's showing you the homes, it's showing you the locations, it's showing the subject property, how it compares, but now it's showing your calculations, if you added or subtracted because of these things. This is where it's showing all that information. So again, to my point, unless you're 100% sure with the numbers you use, don't show this to a customer. And if anything, definitely don't leave it, right? Because you don't want them to have this. The appraiser comes through, they get to see the appraisal, and it's totally different. Like, we don't want that. So, but this is really helpful for us to kind of really figure out the differentials. So they break it down to all of those different things. We didn't do many adjustments. We were playing, but it breaks it down just like we did. Oh, I obviously said photos. Gosh, I forgot to take that one off. Sorry, guys. This is what you don't. Oh, and I had left my notables and quotables in there. Fabulous. But notice it comes up with just each of the valuations and the changes that were made. So this is great for us, but I truly would not be giving this one to a seller. Any questions about this one? And then obviously the price that you're going to lean off of is the top.
Carrie, can I ask you a question? If you go into RPR and you're seeing that, where you click view details, when you search it and you can't find any comparables, what you just have to.
You have to broaden your search. Or you can always add. Let's say you're in comp analysis. Great point. And let's say we go back to the comparative analysis, which is the typical one that we typically use. And let's say we want to edit our comps, right? So if you don't find a property here, you can add a known property. So if you pull stuff up on the MLS, you can add it right here to your report.
Okay.
So this is national. So for example, recently, God help me, I just joined the Daytona MLS, the Daytona Beaches. I'm part of the Space Coast. Well, if I wanted to find something in Daytona or Space Coast in Stellar, 9 out of 10 times, it's not going to be there. So this is where I might find that problem, but it usually would be the reverse. I'd see it in RPR. I wouldn't see it in Stellar. But there has been cases where I have seen things in Stellar and not here in RPR. I don't know why, for what reason they didn't show, but it is, or if you're just wondering, why couldn't I find this one? Maybe it was there, but you have too broad a search and you just want to pull out the stuff you've used from MLS, you could do that too. It's a simple way to do it. Because remember, we don't want to use a billion different things. All right, any questions? Did everybody kind of understand the difference between the two, how simple they both are to use? The better one, that would be for you, but certainly I like the comparative sales analysis if you're really trying to decide what the value could be. But again, should we give that to seller? In my opinion, no, because we really aren't appraisers. Any questions?
Yeah, Carrie, the adjustments that we make in RPR, does that become available to every other agent and appraiser, or is it strictly for our own personal use?
Strictly for your own personal use. And what's funny is when you go back into RPR to that property, it'll show your adjustments, but nobody else sees it that way. Only you do. Good question.
Thank you.
Did you have one, Kim?
Yes. Is there a way to just do a map search? Like if you were looking in one specific area? So there is, okay.
Yeah, but the reality is you're better off if you can put in the specifics of what you're looking for. If you have to broaden it, but they're going to go specifically within a mile typically. You can say make it larger, but that's kind of how it's set up.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mm-hmm.
Carrie, I have two questions. The first one that I was trying to ask before is that I didn't quite understand why a two-story square footage is cheaper, is less money than a one-story.
Oh, okay, so, and I'm sure Kim Mancini can help with this. When you work with a builder, you know, the cost associated with building has a lot to do with the buildable lot, number one. And so if you have a home site that's, 60 by 120, let's say, if you're doing a single story, you're going to take up a lot more of that lot than if you're doing a two-story, right? Because that little footprint is going to be shorter. So where's the cost there? Well, extra slab. Now you're paying extra concrete. You have to pay extra for the walls because just to go up, right? What's the first floor? All concrete blocks. So now you're doing concrete block in a much larger space versus the little box, and then you're doing usually, right, wood on the second story. That's our code here. Also, the roof. And a roof in a little square is much smaller, right? Whereas if you have this really long, and oftentimes you may have like a little patio here and a little, so it's a lot more probably intricate normally, or it's just longer. So, you have more roof trusses, you have more shingles or tiles. It's just more material to build, and it takes up more of that home site. And you want to add to that, Kim? Did I cover most of that stuff? I mean, think about it. Even sheetrock, everything, you're adding so much more. But usually it's the larger items, like the slab, like the block. There's a lot of cost there versus, to do wood, that stuff's cheap. So that's really where a lot of the differentials is in the building.
But would you notice that difference more at the time when it's a new construction? Because I think what I see out there is that people just calculate a square footage and that's it. I haven't really noticed that difference. Maybe I have to pay more attention, but I haven't noticed.
It is there. You will definitely see it from the builder because the builder's going to price them differently for sure because they know their cost. A builder comes up with the price of the home based upon the cost that it cost them to build it, right? So, but oftentimes, if you notice, the single stories are smaller than the two stories. So the prices on the two stories are higher. That's why you're not noticing it. But the actual price per square foot is lower on the two story because it's cost them less to build it. And so if you're comparing communities and you're looking in and you're trying to stay within that 200 range on either side, it's very rare that you're going to get single stories mixed with two stories. You might occasionally, or you might get like a single story with a bonus room or something like that, right? But a traditional single story with a two story, there's usually probably a pretty big differential in square footage. So it probably didn't come up in the appraisal, in your, CMA. But I guarantee you that the appraiser is going to pull that out definitely. They're going to, if you ever see an appraisal report where you have a single story and they're comparing it to two stories, either there was just no comps or that guy's an idiot. I'm just going to say that. Notice I made a man a certain way. Could have been a woman. Okay. Any thoughts or questions about anything else that you guys want to go over?
I have one more, if I may.
No, Maria, you're cut off. One only. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, this is more of we might not use it directly in the comparables, but it's a question that I have had a couple of times. I have some people that I've been working with, and they ask me about, their home is around the 800. It doesn't have a beautiful home, but it doesn't have a lake or anything in front of them. There's homes, beautiful homes that are million up and up, 2 million, 3 million. So they're building right now, they're finishing a home that is going to be 2 million plus in front of them. And they always had that thing that said, oh, our home is going to be worth more. And I explained to them,
more. I'm missing that part of the question. Why do they think it's worth more? Because it's across the street from more expensive homes?
Yes. So I explained to them how it works. I said, well, not necessarily. What is going to be, it's going to be great because people is going to love that they have a beautiful home in front of them. And
well, there is truth in that, not to cut you off, Maria, because if you're the largest home in the community, you're the one who is going to hit, you're probably not going to get the highest value out of your home. If you're the smallest home in the community, you probably will get more value than, so there is a reality to that. The larger, more expensive homes will cushion their value. If it was, their home was the most expensive and there's townhomes in there, guess what's going to happen to their value? The value is going to be different because there is a valuation differential there for sure. So it's not like, okay, well, I can say, definitively your price per square foot is going to be higher, but it will help because your appraised values will be more regulated. They'll be more modified versus if that was the highest one. Does that make sense?
Yes. What happens is that in this community, there's a lot of beautiful, this situation. So it's not like, oh, this is the only new beautiful home that they're building and now everybody else is gonna, they have a lot of great homes already and on the lake. So
well, keep in mind too, Maria, it really doesn't matter if they're across the street from the home or not, but that may have a value to a homeowner who's looking, who likes that. It also might be a negative for a homeowner who doesn't want to look at the better home across the street and wishing his home was at home. So that could play one way or another. So it's really not necessarily worth more because it's across the street, but it definitely does help support the values when there's homes that are higher priced in the community.
That's what I told them. They just have, their family, they have a builder in the family and they just stuck in the idea that when the home is done, but the home is done. It's more than halfway. And I'm like that, the value is there already, that they're going to have a beautiful home in front. It's already helped the rest of the community, but it's not the only one. There's a lot of the same situation in the same community.
And it's pretty normal. That's why builders do that. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Did everybody learn something, I hope, today? Just a little something? So go have some fun, play around in RPR. It is an awesome, I love the site RPR. It's so great. I really, to me, the value of RPR, the fact that we have access to any listing in the United States is amazing. And it really is, they're all in there. Start playing around and looking up your family and friends that live in other places. We could be total creepers. We can see everything about them. So it's very fun. All right, guys, well, have a wonderful rest of your week. I was thinking that next week for our training on Wednesday, I wanted to do a training on how to increase and beef up, if you will, your pulse report by utilizing List Sync, because I think you probably have all heard me talk about it briefly, but I don't know if everybody is really comfortable in using List Sync to really make that seller's report really a usable tool for you to show your customers everything you're doing. How do you guys feel about that? Is anybody interested in that as a topic?
I am. Yes.
Does anybody else have any other suggestions? The reason I want to teach that as well as I can tell you, marketing may teach you the pulse report. They're not going to teach you List Sync. Between us, they don't really want you using them, which is why I train on it. So don't tell anybody. I may not put that part in the description, but yeah, it's really imperative that you have these great tools and resources that are available to us to be able to beef up that pulse report and also give you better information. So everybody have a great rest of your week. I was thinking on Monday, I would do another contract class. I was going to try to do the commercial contracts. Anybody interested in that?
Yes, ma'am.
And I have a suggestion, Carrie, please.
Please.
If we can go over the closing statement on a future training.
The closing statement. I'm sorry, I'm not
The
following.
HUD.
Oh, sure, the HUD. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, sure, we can do that too. I'll add that in a future training.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Hey, Bruno, have you been using ListSync? Do you know how to do it?
I'm sorry?
Have you been using ListSync? Do you know how to use that to beef up your seller report?
No, I haven't.
Fabulous. Okay, then if you don't know it, then nobody knows it. So we're good. Okay, everybody. Everybody's with me. All right, fabulous. Well, you guys have a fabulous rest of your day. If any of you have a website that is a third-party site, do not miss Cheryl's her presentation at 2, because she's going to be giving you language that needs to be added to that site, because many of our agents that have third-party sites are getting letters from attorneys with horrible fines. And it's because of ADA, and ADA does not play. So if you have that, do not miss that 2 p.m. Also tomorrow, I will be sending out a reminder, but please do join us for the town hall. Budge is gonna be on there. We're gonna have some fabulous information, some great, I am not allowed to talk about any of our numbers because he wants to share it all. It's all going to be out there. We're going to talk about some really great, exciting new things. So make sure you're on the town hall as per normal. I will send everybody a text to remind you. But if you need me for anything, holler. And if you want a meeting, give me a call. I'm meeting with a lot of you and enjoying it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your day, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.